I am going to do this leaf bookmark, and I'm going to start with this green color 703 with this long line right here. So remember that the floss comes in strands of 6. So I had to separate this. So notice that there's only 3 strands in this piece. So I'm going to use the needle threader just because they're so cool. And you take the filament part that is really kind of hard to see here, but it's easy to put that filament in through the eye of the needle. And then you can put the thread, I've lost my end, down through it easily. And then you can just pull that through. Of course, that's the hardest it's ever done it for me. And then pull the needle threader right off. Over there. Now I want to leave a bit of a tail on my thread as I pull it down, because I'm going to leave a tail to put under it. Now, sometimes people take the tail and go back and forth, but what I'm going to do when I go over here, this is where I'm going to start right here. So I'm going to stick the needle through on this side so I can see the needle right here, so that when I turn it over and pull it through, I'm going to leave a rather long tail. Now I only do this on the first stitch. I'm leaving a long tail so that I don't have to do the back and forth thing, and I will be able to then thread this tail on and put it under the first stitches that I do. So I'm going to turn it back over, and I'm going to do, actually I put it at the wrong place. So I'm just going to quickly move it. Again, leaving the long tail on the back. And I'm going to come up here to the next spot, pull it through. Then I'm going to come up, and I don't really have to turn it over or anything. I've got this secured either with a clip, or because the camera's here, I can't fit a clip here too. So I'm going to just come up from the bottom. So I'm just going to pretend this hand here is my clip holding it, and then go back down. Again, the first one you do, you want to make sure you don't pull it too hard, or it will pull your tail through. But after you get a couple of them in there, there's no danger of pulling the whole thing through if you just tug it till they're secure. So I'm getting the little threads very secure. I'm going to go all the way across to the end of this one row. And then once I get all of them going across in this direction, so I have all of them going in this direction, now I need to do the crosses in this direction. So I'm going to start at the bottom of this one. and come back through and then make the cross. So I go back down on the top of it and I just am doing the crosses. Doesn't really matter if you start at the bottom or the top of the crosses. You just want all of the ones that are going in this direction first and all the ones in this direction second, so that your whole picture when you're done is consistent. Some people will do their crosses in the other direction, which is okay as long as you do it for the entire picture. But I think it's more common to do them in this direction, where they're kind of like computer front slashes on the bottom and back slashes on the top, right? So I'm finishing this last one here, and I can choose to either move up my drawing or down. And notice I didn't start in the middle. When you have the printed ones, you don't necessarily have to start in the middle. You can start anywhere. When you have the ones that are counted, you usually like to start in the middle so that you can get everything centered on the piece of cloth that you have. So I am going to go up here like I'm starting this next one and go through it. And I often just leave my needle over on the side. But for this case, I am going to take the thread off because I want to get this tail that I left on the back. So notice I didn't have to keep turning it over because of that tail. So I am now going to thread my tail. So I thread my tail. And now I can use that to go through these first stitches. If I can do this where you can see it. And that way I only had to turn it over one time. Now, ideally, you want to just get the green threads. You don't really want to get the white threads from the material. So this is perhaps a little bit trickiest part. And I'm trying to do it kind of quickly. But that is there what I have done to that first part. Now I don't need all of that tail on there. And if I had done it the other way, I wouldn't have left such a long tail. So I'm going to cut it off. And that little tail might get covered in some other pieces, or it might not. It doesn't really matter. But now those pieces are secure, and I kind of tug on that and make sure that that first stitch over here. On the back side, it looks like it's on the right. Of course, on the front side, it was on the left. And now I need to rethread my needle and continue up the leaves. So I will continue going up the leaves. And I like to keep it so that as I'm working, there's really only a little bit that's not doubled. That keeps the whole thing shorter. And as you go back and forth, sometimes your thread will get twisted, and just hold it up and let gravity untwist it. And then you can go back to working the next row. So now I'm going to go back and work the next row. And I find in going in one direction, it's easiest to go top to bottom, and going in the other direction, it's easiest to go top to bottom, going right to left and bottom to top, going up the piece. But find whatever works for you. And you'll find sometimes putting the stitches in where there's already a stitch is a little more challenging. And so for that reason, sometimes you might use a little extra thread and go from the other corner. And do that right there. That one's kind of thick. Some cross stitch you do with 2 threads instead of 3. The size of the Aida cloth is a little different. So you can do that. I find those threads are a little easier to work on. So I'm just going to move back across. And notice in the next row that I have, I actually have some of the dark green, $6.99 or $3.99. I can't see what that number is right there. So I'm going to have to be careful, make sure I skip those and leave them for when I bring in the darker thread. So when I do the next row up here, I am going to have to go the next row. I'm going to go through these 2 kind of quickly. Time's sake. Then when I start the next one, notice the next row is all the way over here. So I'm starting the next row up here, and then I have this green one right here that I will have to skip because that is one of the darker green ones. And we'll notice when I get up here, I will skip some. So I can either do it after this one right here, or I can do it after this one here. This is a longer space, so I would probably do that one. And then notice up here and here, by then I'll probably have to have gotten a new piece of thread, get the other half of this one, because remember, you have to remember to cut the 6 threads, split them so that you have only 3 threads as you're working through it. So each color you have is going to make it into two different ones that you can use. And I find these patterns are typically very, very well delineated as to which color each little square is. These pre-done patterns, if you get a picture, like if I take a picture and send it in to get it printed on the cloth or something, sometimes it's a little fuzzy, which is which, and you've got to figure it out. But these pre-done patterns are usually very good. And the original pixel pictures are these kinds. So I'm just going to go across here until I finish all these. And when I do get to the end, near the end of this thread, I will turn it over and put it through these under here to catch it. So the idea is if you don't have knots, you won't have lumps when you're done. And since this will be a bookmark, this will actually be the back of the bookmark. We could put a cover over it if we want to, but wasn't really planned by them. So if I'm going to work on it later, I usually just stick my needle over on the side like that, so it's not dangling. When I go to pick it up, I stab myself. So when I come back to this, I'm just going to finish doing the light green across here. If I run out of thread, I will put a new one in, and then I'll come up all the way to here. Then I'll come back and do the light greens down this direction, or maybe I'll start the dark greens. Thing is, you have options. You can do it whatever seems good to you. And these printed ones are nice because you can just start wherever and you're going to be right. With the counted one, there's a little more effort in the counting, but you don't have to soak them at the end to get rid of the colors. All right, we'll have another one coming in a little bit.